Stan, this is the Development Review Committee for Tuesday, August 26th. Before we get started, just a quick reminder for everyone in the room and listening online, there's no DRC in 2 weeks on September 9th, and there's no interagency planning meeting next week on September 1st. Okay, and with that, the first thing we have is Wilgus 2 North Park site plan, preliminary plan, and forest conservation in West County. Erin A. Ray.
Yeah. Morning, everyone. Erin Fowler. I'm the lead reviewer on the project. We're really excited to have this project in for review. I know it just came in for sketch plan amendment approval earlier this year, so thanks for the submission. A few things I'll just flag from planning's perspective before we turn it over to you. Just to touch on the schedule, we'll need the first resubmittal by September 10th to stay on track, and then a final submittal of September 30th for a December 4th planning board date. And then just one overarching comment on the preliminary plan amendment in particular is that it needs to specifically address which conditions have changed from the original preliminary plan approval, since that is still the governing approval for the plan. So if you are proposing to change or remove any conditions, we'll just need to know which those are in the next submission. And because those changes to the original approval affect what we're covering in this application, we'll need it to be renoticed and updated in the SOJ, and the sign updated as well, so that it's really clear to the community what you're proposing to change. I know I also forwarded an email about a response we received from a community member about undergrounding utilities. So when you resubmit, that will need to be addressed. And we've also requested a more detailed cost breakdown on the utility evaluation in line with the sketch plan amendment. From a transportation perspective, I think a couple of the bigger items are the town road 2-way separated bike lane and protected intersection at Town and Josiah Henson. Those were big from the original preliminary plan and the bicycle master plan. And from an environmental perspective, not too much, I think, that we've flagged on that, but just the noise analysis will need to be updated. And we'd like to see some more tree coverage in the park and along the unit entrances. And I think those are the high level items. So with that, I can turn it over to the applicant.
Well, I'm not going to speak today. They've got it, so you don't have to listen.
I'm Greg Ruff with Dry Point Homes. Good to see you all. Thanks for the comments. Mike, I don't know if you want to jump in, but on the undergrounding of utilities, we do have, I think, some good information that we can provide in the resubmission to, I think, further justify or explain the justification for the undergrounding. I thought we gave a pretty detailed breakdown of the costs, but we can look at that again and talk about that in the resubmission. If there's someone we wanted to meet with, I think, we just got the comments and are still kind of going through them. But if there's someone we wanted to meet with before the next submission to talk about the undergrounding, who would that be on the county side?
You can reach out to me, Erin Fowler, and then I can coordinate with the right people on our team.
I did have just one question since you mentioned the noise analysis. I understand that a waiver it would be requested as part of the next submission. What does that involve? We already submitted our noise study, I think, with the original application. So what are you expecting with the next submission in the way of a waiver for no noise attenuation in these exterior, these park areas?
Bianca, an environmental reviewer. So for that waiver, it's just, I guess, a justification on why you can't put the outdoor. It's mainly for the outdoor areas, the parks, and for noise attenuation for that eastern urban park. And I think in the previous submission for the first site plan, they submitted a similar waiver for the 2 parks in the center and western side. That explained that, just why it's not possible to put
You'd be
this.
walling them off, basically.
Exactly. That's pretty much.
Okay, so just follow the example that we did on the first phase. Okay. Mike, did you have any questions? Yeah.
If we can go through start with the site plan, I have a few questions and I'll just I'll identify the number and ask the question. So on site plan number 31, there's a comment from Sam regarding chokers to meet DPS criteria. Note parking within 35 feet of an intersection. Is that on Streamline Boulevard there? We have some parking, street
Yes,
parking.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm Sam, but.
Oh,
we haven't-
yeah, but I saw you on, we talked on Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, chapter 31 of the county code prohibits parking within 35 feet of an intersection. And in this case, seems like in a couple of places we have that. So we will not be able to really those parking areas.
So this parking is specifically, just want to make sure I understand, this year we
Yes.
cannot do this parking. We cannot do this.
This is Rebecca. Can you all zoom in and show us where you're talking about? Because we can't see anything.
Yeah, it's the western blonde display. Sorry, with the, Erin, if you can zoom into the internal street north-south on the western portion.
Yeah, Streamline.
So this is Streamline.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's talking about those.
This area.
Street parking,
Yeah,
yes,
right
right
there.
there. To the south.
Can you zoom in more? I'm sorry, I'm blind, but yeah. I mean, I thought this was all approved, like.
That
Isn't
was in
this-
the original plan.
Yeah, but that was our comment from the original plan as well. That was, thank God. So Rebecca, if traffic allows it, we could accept it, but we need their approval.
I mean, it's already built, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing modifications. But for the large part, the road is built.
Well, Streamline, yeah, it's built.
So, and this is a public roadway, so Sam, you guys would have approved, if it's already built and you would have approved it, then it went through your office already.
Yeah, it went through, we had this comment that site plan as well before.
Right. But if they went through DPS review already,
It's up to you, Rebecca. If you want to say it's okay, it's okay. The whole thing is back for review, including streamline road. If you are okay with it, we can let it go.
I mean, it's already approved. We can talk about it offline, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we do want to make sure we're doing what parking we can and we hate to
Yes.
limit. And if there's some kind of statement that you need from us to help support it, let us know.
Yeah, as long as he's okay with it, I'm fine.
Hey, Sam, this is Atik. I agree with Rebecca. If it's already approved and it's constructed, then should be fine. We don't want to go back and rebuild the whole street because they don't meet the criteria.
Rebecca, it's only 9:40 and you've already made my day. Thank you.
Okay, so we take that at.
Well, how about this? I'll send you this wonderful resident of this property and you can talk to her. 'Cause she's, I don't know if anybody's on the call that I've been dealing with. And I think that some of the people on site people have been helping me. She's complaining about the medians. They're right in, right out. And she's like, I keep running over these things. And I'm like, yeah, you're not supposed to go that way. So she sent me another email in case I don't know if anybody's else on that I deal with all the time on this.
Rebecca, this is Greg Ruff, Tripod. Yeah, so you and I had a call with Billy and talked about it. That email I sent, was that sufficient? Or?
Yeah, so I sent her that email. I thought I copied somebody from your team on it. And then she sent me an email back. So we'll probably need to talk again.
Yep.
We're not going to change anything. There's too many entrances on the other side of the street. So anyways, I appreciate the help.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, moving on, number 39. This is your comments, Natasha. We're probably going to have to set up a follow-up meeting to go through it more in detail. But there are a couple just clarifications that we can do. The architecture, we're gonna have to review, TriPoint's gonna have to review internally, and then we'll like to schedule a meeting at your soonest
Yeah, I think
convenience.
it's exhibit to you yesterday.
Yeah.
I hope that
Yeah.
you had some issue downloading them from.
Oh,
email.
that's correct. I was able to download.
Okay.
Okay. But there are a couple of quick questions. There was a comment about the site layout and the unit entryways and providing for semi-public area for these individual units. So if you zoom into the promenade area towards the park, the corner park, yeah, right there. There's not much area there to work with. We have the promenade for the fire department access, then we have about 10 feet there between the 20-foot access to the face of the building. We have stoops going up to the units there.
Yes.
So what there's not a whole lot we can do there in terms of landscaping.
Let me go back and explain. So
Okay.
what you see on this is Natasha, urban designer from the design team. So the issue that we had was the plants that you guys are introducing that we saw it on a site plan, but we did not see it on the elevations. So it looks like it's a 4 or 5 foot kind of like a concrete pad in front of the whole stick. And these are like 9, 10 units continuous. So we thought that like every 2 units have the stairs going up, and then all of that concrete pad in front of it is going to be shared among the whole stick. And that's something that we thought that maybe individually, if every 2 units have their individual entryway and a stoop, then in between it can be a break for landscaping, and that will help soften the edges and create that semi-private space that we are looking for. So that comments is relating to that. And I think on the exhibit, I kind of like explained it a little bit further.
Yeah, there are grading issues that we're dealing with there. So we could look at it, see where that could possibly work.
When you say 2 units, you mean 2 doors?
The 2
or-
doors, yeah.
or-
Yeah, 2 doors.
2
Like,
doors.
see, Mike, like there is another, like a very thin line, 4 foot offsetting the face of the building. So it looks like that's a continuous, like a plank that everybody kind of like stepping into before they get to the entryway.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't 4 doors or it's 2
Yeah,
doors.
So it's each condo.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what we're.
She was just saying like put a break in here and then here,
Okay.
right? And then
So
here.
that those area can be more like landscaping instead of like having a long continuous concrete pad in front of all the doors.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
To be clear, we're not asking for more depth. We understand there's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah, we just wanted to make sure we do understand because there are some grading
Yeah.
Yeah.
concerns that we do.
And that
have.
might actually lead you to some more specific solutions here, like where you need the steps, you might do something different. Where there is no step, you might have a little bit more flexibility.
Mhm.
Happy to see what you guys come up with as far as a solution. I think our main concern was that you already have this very wide paved area that you need to have for the fire trucks. And then in the fronts of the building, you have this continuous, essentially plinth, which is also paved.
Right.
And if there are ways to break those up in a manner that works with the floor plans and the unit layout and demising walls, like, please look at that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
we'll
think
take a
that we
look.
understand. Yeah, thank you.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
All right. Another just general comment about the public open space. It's, there's more hardscape there, and what you're basically saying is to reduce some of the hardscape with more landscaping elements, lawn area. That's
Correct. I
okay.
think that's.
And that's specifically in the front area.
Yeah, like it looks like beside those 3 small planter area, there is no like a grass or trees to soften the area. And I think environmental had the same comments. So you are using different type of paved, which is nice, but then at the end, like if there is no shade, people are not gonna use it. So if there is a way to like increase the grass area, lawn area, or increase the amount of the tree, I think that's something that we are looking at.
Yeah, that's fairly easy enough. And it is a very urban area, but you're right, it needs more landscaping, more trees there. That's one of the few places where we can accommodate larger trees, because it's within the promenade, it's very difficult.
Correct.
Okay. Moving along here, number 40, there's a comment about complete streets, and during the the sketch plan, we thought we addressed it. This is the requirement on each frontage So the required shared path width, the bicycle, the two-way bicycle width, the buffer, and then the sidewalk. And we thought we had it right. We might need to follow up on a meeting on this because we're trying to,
Comment is-
this is Carlos.
I'm Carlos.
Oh,
Cosme,
okay, yeah.
Transportation planner.
Yeah, we just, good meeting. We just want to understand what is the governing document, or there's the approved preliminary plan, and then we have the complete streets plan, and then we have
The
Bicycle
bicycle master plan. The Montgomery plan, the Montgomery County bicycle master plan is the governing document that requires for a two-way separate bike lane on Tanny Road. And I think also that goes into the prevailing issue of the transitions on Josiah Henson Parkway, at least on the breezeway and the bike lane.
currently we have a 10-foot two-way bike lane, and then there's a buffer between the bike lane and I think it's a 5-foot sidewalk or a 6-foot sidewalk. Yeah, that's correct then, right?
So the 6-foot sidewalk is part of the complete street guideline, which is correct, but the bike lane is not. We need to have a two-way separate bike lane.
Oh, so each bike lane is separated. Yeah. And it's 10 feet wide. Okay, all right. Easy. And then the Montrose is correct and Josiah Henson is correct?
So the north side needs to be addressed because that's where the master plan bike lane is. The sidewalk is fine. We didn't find any major issues besides addressing that kind of like corner crossing. We need to make sure that it's pro-wet compliant. But that goes back to Josiah Henson Parkway and the four corners of the protected transitions. Based on ADA standards, we need to make sure that those four are upgraded as protected crosswalks, and they need to be ADA compliant.
This is
I
Richard
think
Butler.
that's
Just a note on the town road bikeway. I think the main issue is it was shown both as a shared path and as a two-way separated bike lane. It just needs to be labeled consistently.
Okay.
It is
Yeah.
a two-way separated bike lane. There's not a buffer between the two lanes. So I just want.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Great, I think,
So for the intersection of Josiah Henson and Town,
We need to have a conversation with SHA because Josiah Henson actually County Road is an SHA road, so we would need to, and this could be off, on the side, but we need to do a bit of a redesign.
yeah, that's what I wanted to see is like understood that, our goal is always pro-WAG and ADA.
For sure.
But, there's specific nuances and everything. So maybe that's another one that we try to have a specific meeting on.
And I think a meeting with SHA is appropriate, and we're obviously going to have a meeting with MCDOT to assess the best possible design. Because to be honest, another item that needs to be addressed is the depression in the corner of Downey and Josiah Henson. We believe, and this was part of the original preliminary plan. We asked for a slight depression on the bicycle transition, and we just want to make sure that that's addressed because it would effectively create that division between the pedestrian and the bike path.
do we follow up with you on that?
Yes, I'm sure can.
Just a draft and I'll forward you
Yeah,
the
I
draft.
can coordinate whatever follow-up meetings you want to have. I
Okay.
can make sure the right people from our side are.
I feel like we can do a quick draft sketch to make sure we're hitting all the issues and just send it your way and get.
Yeah, and we can work together offline also on assessing the design and, getting to a point where we can be comfortable approving.
Okay,
Great.
One more, this is on the preliminary plan comments. This is regarding Billy Whelan's number 16. So just want to make sure there's no more DOT comments. So what we have here is it. Is there any additional site distance evaluation?
Some with Montgomery planning. Billy is MCDOT. He's online.
Oh, okay.
For which comment? I see my comment 16 as
Truck,
bus stop related.
Okay. So you want additional truck turning for the interior alleys? Not just Streamline Boulevard? Number 6.
Uh,
turning template. Okay, so that's for all the interior alleys. Okay, good. And then site distance exhibit, I think we provided one from Streamline to Montrose. Does that suffice, or do we need to provide anything more?
On site distance.
I didn't have a site distance comment that I see.
Okay, I was just confirming.
That could have been me for the private alleys. We do want to make sure that the right of way, the speed limit, grading, and site distance are included in the. We count them kind of as private roads because they are kind of serving as that purpose. So some site distance analysis would be good, and then for Streamline as well, it'd be good to have turning movements as well.
Okay, no problem. I think we have one completed already. Great.
And Billy, you did have one note that said the storm drain is currently under review. Did you complete the review and have any comments, or was it okay?
I haven't completed that yet, but I assume it's, I remember from the previous preliminary plan, there were a lot of downstream upgrades required. So I just want to go back and make sure that nothing additional has changed.
Okay, if you do find anything that looks like anything downstream is needed, if you don't mind giving me a call and we could talk through it.
Okay, will do.
While we're still on the topic of transportation, circling back on planning, we noticed that you submitted a transportation adequacy form that was unsigned. If possible, can you resubmit it and have us do a brief scope? We just want to make sure that the new land use is working within our guidelines and there's an IT gen analysis. It's just a formality, but we want to make sure that planning gets signed off on the TAF.
Oh, the TA, got it. Okay, got it.
A question about TDM, the comments, I guess maybe Billy, this is you again, the TDM. I know we set up, in fact, I worked to set up the TDM program for phase 1, which included an orange policy or an orange program and a red program for the area, I think, east of North Park Drive. When we created that original program, phase 2, our current property was supposed to be multifamily. I'm sure as I get into it, I'm going to have questions about what we're supposed to be doing. I'm not sure if we're amending the original red policy plan or if we're just creating a new one. Would you be the right person to talk to about any questions?
That would actually be Sam DeMisa.
Okay.
He's his contact info is listed in my comments.
Okay.
But if and when you contact him, just CC me on all communication.
Okay. I normally rely on our transportation consultant, Nancy Randall. She's out of the country for a couple weeks or longer possibly. So
Okay.
I need to check in with you all about what we're supposed to be doing.
Okay, sounds good.
I'm online. Yeah. So my name is Samuel Demesa. I am the TDM compliance coordinator at MCDOT. So I like Billy said, you have my contact information, and we can discuss and set up a meeting offline and talk about whether a revision is the best way to go forward, or completing a brand new TDM plan for the next phase project.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you're done with transportation, I was going to add a piece of clarification on the issue we discussed earlier. Those parking that you see at the intersection, the parkings are approved, but the intersections, something that we are introducing as part of this site plan. Perhaps that's why that comment was resurfaced there. So, Rebecca, can you please weigh in again, because the parkings were there, but the intersections were new. Are you still okay with it, or you still think it's?
I think that's I don't know that I'm prepared to answer that at this point, so.
Okay, I mean, I just don't want to have any issue later on when it comes to permit with this. Again, because this is law. This is not something that we created just for as a policy or something that we're going to do for this project in this particular case. This is the law. We cannot have any parking within 35 feet of an intersection. And again, the parking is existing, as Atik said, and you said, but the intersection is new. So I would like this thing to be settled, so we're not gonna have any problem down the road. From the intersection.
Sam,
The opposite side of the street. Right?
Sam, can you and I and Rebecca meet after this meeting?
Absolutely.
Perhaps, and then we'll let the applicant know.
Absolutely, yes. I agree, Atik, definitely.
And just to note it, I mean, there were some intersections going on the east side of Streamline as well.
Right, but it wasn't part of the site plan, Mike. So the site plan, that area was nothing proposed.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like there were intersections there before as well. And I get that you want to reevaluate.
Yes.
I'm just saying like to help the conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, let's get together and settle this so that we're not gonna have an issue later on.
Mike, we'll get back to you with our position. Collective decision, DOT and DPS.
Great, thank you.
One more question, and I can't seem to find it. I had it highlighted here. This is regarding bollards right at the foot of the promenade. There was a comment about it can't be in the public right of way. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh.
Yeah, no ballers in the right.
Okay, so we would have to move those bollards on the other side of the property line. Okay. Is that also, the pedestrian lights are fine, just those bollards?
Yeah, I mean, what happens is, Sachin, we would like to keep the pedestrian public path within the right of way. I mean, the way I see here, it seems like the sidewalk connects to the top, the sidewalk is in the right of way, then goes out of the right of way and then comes back in. As long as we make sure we have an ADA sidewalk within the right of way for public use, our purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll be there. I think it'll end up being a PIE looking at this.
Yeah.
And I think we found out that there was a PIE that's getting widened on this side.
Sure.
With you guys. So we'll start layering that information on so it's a little bit more clear.
Okay.
Is the PIA identified in the cross section for Streamline?
No, I think it's getting processed right now by the original engineer that did Streamline. So we just need to reflect that on the plan.
We're about out of time on this one, or more.
I will mention, there was a comment from housing about dispersion of the MPDUs, and we had intentionally actually paired them up because those MPDUs are slightly narrower, so we thought architecturally it would look good to have them side by side, and that's the same thing we did at our East Jefferson project. At Tool, I think we talked where we had narrower townhome MPDUs, and we paired them up just to make the elevation look a little stronger. So that was our intention here, but we can look at splitting them up if that's necessary for dispersion.
DHCA is on the call, but that.
Yeah, I'm Adrian Hobson. I'm with DHCA. I'm the one that made the comment. Yeah, because they're back to backs, and I see that it's going to be 4 MPDUs side by side. So if you could split them up, that would be good. Architecturally, if you have a reason to build them that way, then that's understandable. But if it's possible, I would like to see them split up amongst different sticks throughout the community.
Yeah, I understand the comment. Thanks, Adrian. In fact, in this case, the MPDUs aren't much narrower. They're only 6 inches narrower than the market, so it's not quite as big a deal as it was at the other project. So we'll take a look at that. Not a problem.
You can coordinate with me for the follow-up meetings. I know we have more.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
This is Neil Bronstein again. Item number 2 for DRC, and I'll make the same announcement I made before, just in case new people are on the call, but there's no DRC meeting in 2 weeks on September 9th. So keep your calendars clear on that day. So we're on item number 2, concept plan 801 Rotor Road. And Tamika, if you're ready. Yeah.
Thanks, Neil. Hi, good morning, everyone. So we have a concept plan pulled up on the screen. We know how challenging it is to make an adaptive reuse project work, so we're really pleased that you're able to bring in this concept that will reuse a vacant building, and it's also a very creative way to disguise self-storage in a really busy downtown. So I think what you probably gathered from all the comments is that based on the level of detail provided, that there is support for the submission of a future site plan. I'll just quickly touch on some of our high-level comments. We have concerns in 4 areas: zoning and density, transportation, environment, and design. I think we would summarize them in that fashion. One of the issues or comments that we had is associated with how the 3,000 square feet will be carved out, so that the existing gross track area will remain the same. I do understand that there's some level of coordination with DPS perhaps happening at this point in time, but if we could have more details about how that transition is going to work, because that's key to making the findings for the application. We also think that it's really important to think down the line for how we can continue to keep the charitable use in this project. So we are suggesting a covenant for that particular use. We do know that you're going to pursue the UNO within the 2-year period as required, but we really want to have a conversation beyond what's going to happen. If you get a new tenant, or if you're struggling to get a new tenant, perhaps. And with the environment, we just wanted to point out that the entire site would need to come in through your exemption or the FCP plan. We know that you only, I think you mentioned, only control the vacant office portion, so that may just be another conversation to make sure that the other portion of the property is included with that application. We would also like to see the recommendations for cool streets included. For transportation, we just really want to see the cross sections parceled out into separate ones. So with the existing conditions and with the future conditions, we also would like more detail with the tree pits and with the parking meters, and just a little bit more detail so we can have a conversation about what's required. And then I'll quickly wrap up with the design. We do understand that you're proposing about 3,000 square feet, but the layout, as you can see here, is quite narrow. So there's some concern about functionality of the space. We know that you have a user on board, and that's exciting. But we still have concerns about how functional that space will be for them, or if you have future tenants. And you talked about some of the internal changes that you're going to make with the structural holes, and it seems like that would create more flexibility to create a bigger space. So we just wanted to understand, why that flexibility isn't translating to a greater space for the charitable use. And then with your other, flip here, you are proposing a new entrance on the southeast corner, which is a positive thing for the streetscape, but there comes concerns about the orientation. So it is sort of faced into the adjacent parking lot and that access point. So, we are open to have a conversation about perhaps shifting it so it's more central to the street level. And then there were some other minor comments about treatments to some of the service areas. And of course, the main entry, we wanted to know what's happening there. But those are our high level comments. And again, we're looking forward to seeing this adaptive reuse project move forward.
Well, thank you again for taking the time to review, and the concept plan process has been very helpful. So we really appreciate everyone kind of thoroughly reviewing these. It's helpful, especially as the in this instance, the contract purchaser is evaluating, kind of being able to move forward. So as we've all talked about, this is an adaptive reuse. There's some, challenges with that. Turbino, which is out of Seattle, that's been doing more work in this area, has been very committed. Fortunately, we have Robert Sponseller who's involved, who's very creative in terms of coming up with different alternatives. We did have some questions. We focused on those 4 points as well, Tamika, on environmental. And I think, is Pat LeVay on the call yet?
Yep, I'm here.
So the first thing we just had a couple questions in terms of, or kind of comments in terms of stormwater management. We obviously are limited in terms of what we can do because it's existing conditions. So we had a couple questions in that, and then we wanted to just run through street trees in terms of what the team has evaluated as to what they can do, and just get your input as to feedback on that. So Pat, do you want to just start with stormwater management?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, can you guys hear me okay? By the way, I'm in the car. Apologize.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
It's an adaptive reuse to the building. So there's going to be very little land disturbing activity except for that occurs out front to bring the site into compliance with the streetscape standards. We got that comment as well. And as Stacy mentioned, we're going to install some street trees. So, when it comes to adding stormwater management for the existing building, it becomes very difficult. It's my understanding it wasn't built to, withhold the loads of a green roof, say, and there's no sort of tiered sections of this building where we can add any kind of planters, but we do recognize there's recommendations in the master plan, and hopefully we can sort of meet those goals through the streetscape improvements with the street trees and such, and anything else we can do sort of environmentally. But stormwater is just kind of a tricky one, and again, we would not trigger the permitting requirements because there's very little land disturbance involved with this.
As we just wanted to make sure that we were kind of all at least on the same page with regards to at least acknowledging that they're limited in terms of what we can do, in some of the master plan recommendations, but we are focused on the street trees. And I mean, we recognize that there's nothing out there right now, but it's also very narrow. So Robert and Pat have been going through, and as you can see, I mean, those are actually kind of designed locations in terms of where they could be located. And we wanted to just get your feedback as to, is that what you were looking for? I mean, wasn't like they were just throwing them on the plan. They actually really had evaluated where they could be located with utility that are currently in the ground in that area.
And we'll try to add more trees. We currently have 5 or 6. We'll try to get another 1 or 2 in. It depends on the final utility locations and coordination. The rendering doesn't show the strips of planting next to the trees. We'll be doing those obviously as well. And I think Pat, correct if I'm wrong, but we'll be removing the entire frontage of that strip of concrete in order to put in place the below sidewalk soil requirements from the county standard.
That's correct. Yeah, the plan is to implement the Silver String Streetscape standards, which we do understand are, I think, being revised again. So, as we transition to the next stage for this, we'll obviously want to coordinate with environmental planning and others, perhaps DPS arborists, about the right trees to install there with soil volumes and all that. But yes, the plan is to implement to the maximum extent feasible, given the constraints of the building being 11 feet from the existing curb, the streetscape standards and the expanded soil pits.
Hey, this is Mark Etheridge. Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
So are we saying that this project from a regulatory standpoint does not require stormwater management, but it's a master plan requirement to provide it?
It's a master plan recommendation that redevelopment projects provide stormwater, yes. But from a regulatory standpoint, Mark, we suspect that the frontage improvements are probably going to be maybe 2,500 square feet of disturbance. Now, we likely will exceed the 100 cubic yards of earth disturbance because of I mentioned the soil, the tree soil. We're going to have to excavate to put that in, and that's going to be some volume of earth. So we might have to get an SLD, but regulatory, we anticipate being below 5,000.
So you won't require a stormwater management concept. And if you need a letter to that effect, send me one for countersign. But you will need a sediment control permit. You're right. And we could do an SLDA if the only reason for the sediment control permit is earth movement, then we don't require stormwater management from a regulatory standpoint. If there are environmental improvements that are required by the master plan, that could be handled as a separate issue, but it wouldn't be stormwater management.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments from planning?
I would
This
also
is
just add,
Hallie.
I was going to mention, Hallie, you may know too, if you guys, I know the streetscape standards are being updated. If there are particular species recommended for the street, please let us know what's in the draft guidelines. We'll obviously incorporate that as we can. So.
Sure. I want to thank you for all the efforts that you're making to incorporate environment and the recommendations as they are. I understand how difficult it is to kind of lay these things on when you have a whole lot of concrete to deal with. And we'll be happy to work with you going forward to help you integrate as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So wanted to talk about the size of the use that you were referencing. Basically, they have Turbino has an MOU with Pride, which is this LGBTQ plus organization. And 3,000 square feet is kind of what their needs are in terms of use. It also fits in well. And we wanted to talk a little bit about spacing and the whys.
Yeah, so you mentioned the good comments on the space, by the way. So we're implementing about a 20-foot deep space, which is replacing parking with office use all along the facade. 20 feet is about from the glass line to where you're sitting between you two. So it's not too thin that you can't use it. You can put 3 to 4 desks up against that with a circulation route. And in office use, I mean, if we were looking for a new space for our office, for example, we would love a space like this. The very high ratio of perimeter to interior square feet is considered premium space. So I think what we're doing is really maximizing the value of that 3,000 square feet along the facade on 2 levels. We have a circulation element right at the corner near the entry. So it's very efficient in terms of circulation between the 2 levels. And I think having that amount of glass for the space is really going to make it wonderful and very usable and occupiable. So we think it would function very well.
So it's
in
actually,
spite of the dimension.
and I guess the other thing that is that it was very intentional. Like, I mean, Robert kind of chose to do it this way in terms of intentionality for the reasons that he was.
Yeah,
describing.
it's thin, well-lit space is ideal for office use. So we think it'll work just fine.
So I think for us, Robert, at site plan,
Yeah.
we would love to see a floor layout that shows
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And also if you can provide some documentation from the nonprofit that this actually meets and exceeds their needs and square footage needs, I think that would be helpful for us to look at. The ZTA that has led to all of this did not specify a minimum square footage. And when we have looked at other projects that have included such features, they seem to be more and bigger, which is where our comments are coming from. Yeah.
Some of the other comments that you made, the entrance along the southeast corner of the building. So we're proposing a street-oriented sort of recessed porch that you enter into. The reason we've located it here is, I think, a couple of things. Having the entrance near the corner gives the entrance prominence naturally, kind of physically in terms of the building. We also tie into grade very nicely here, so we don't need a lot of ramping and stepping to get into the space. It kind of dovetails nicely with the sidewalk grade. I think the comment on the south side, adjacent to the service lane, we do like your idea of separating the entrance from the service lane a little more strongly architecturally. So we're looking at a planting and perhaps a low wall to protect that entrance on its south side. I'm talking about this location.
What you're talking.
Right here. So we're going to separate this physically one from the other, but we like the idea of opening that corner directly to the street in that location because it gives it prominence and it gives us a third sort of entrance activation along the frontage of Roeder Avenue. So the space, the original entrance, and then the new use for storage office at the northern end of the site. So we think it's a nice way to activate the entire frontage through entrances. Does that answer your question?
Robert, that
Yes.
comment was from me on the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
And thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So I think on my comments, I gave you two options, either move the entryway a little bit northern, toward like one of those between
Down the
those two
street.
ways.
Yeah.
But I understand it might be challenged for the grading.
Yeah.
So the other option would creating some sort of like enclave there, so like it gets separated, like this rendering, they are pretty nice, but then when you look at the aerial that drive, like the service with all the track
No,
at the back.
agree. Yeah.
So we just want to make sure that it doesn't interfere with the trash trucks going there and people coming in and out of this community. So your
Yeah,
idea.
we're north of that service lane, just to be clear, right? We're adjacent to it, but more protection against it, I think is a very good idea.
Yeah, like a physical and
Yeah.
visual protection.
We'll
for
be doing
that
that,
alley.
yeah.
That would be great. Thank you.
I think one of the comments was also, if you could help us, understand better that service lane and access, what kind of, improvements are gonna be made on it? And do you plan to?
This one?
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yes, we're going to be refinishing it, resurfacing it, improving it. It actually belongs to the neighbor. They're going to be using it more than we are, but we will be improving it. We're in discussions currently with the ownership about the wall to the south of it, whether we do anything there. I think that was another comment from somebody. We're not sure whose fence that is on the wall, but we'll look into that and see if we can improve that as well.
I think that becomes really important if the entrance stays at that corner.
Yeah.
That relationship is important as well as the appearance of that alley.
Agreed. Yes. We're happy to be wrapping the corner of the building with the new skid, so that'll make a big improvement on the area, as well as these street level safety devices, I think are important as well.
Question in terms of the covenant, Tamika. They're actually, in terms of the zoning text amendment, it was obviously very purposefully kind of written. And as you saw, there's a requirement that we have get a use and occupancy permit within a certain time period. We had discussed kind of like different enforcement options. And I think everyone had agreed that the enforcement is the site plan enforcement, like typically, like there's wouldn't be a separate agreement or covenant that would be recorded. It would just be an enforcement thing through DPS, as anything is with the site plan. So we can certainly have further conversations, but I at least wanted to give you that background. Legacy provisions. I saw Emily, you're on the call. I was chatting briefly ahead of time with Katie and Tamika about that. I think it probably just makes most sense for us to get on a call after this, just to talk through it a little bit. But the one thing I guess just to kind of collectively say is that there was a request for documentation. And as I mentioned to Tamika and Katie, we have been asking for, Robert and actually others who've been looking for information from DPS, and maybe actually Amy, I saw Amy, you were on. We've come kind of to a blank. We've not gotten anything. And it seems like there may not be anything. We're not sure if there might be anything else. I mean, Amy, if there's anything you might be able to help in that regard. I did have someone just take a quick look and we found one UNO for one space recently. So there's evidence that a UNO was issued, but I think we've always treated this as the building is constructed. A building permit presumably was issued, a UNO was presumably issued, and thus it was built in accordance with the requirements at that time. But Amy, if there's anything else that you can find or help, that would be wonderful too.
Yeah, I definitely can help do the search to see what permits were issued for this property, but right now, not this moment, but I will get back to you for whatever I find.
Thank you so much, Amy.
And Amy, ideally, if we can find the original building permit submission, that's what we're really after, if possible. And we're happy to help. We've also tried and gotten responses that nothing is available, so.
So you did the information request, but you didn't get any response. Oh, okay.
We can find the over the decades tenant fit out permits that have been submitted. Some of those we can find, but we can't find the original building permit documentation for some.
Okay. Okay, I'll see what I can find. I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just a couple of other quick items. There was a question in terms of the truck turning movements. Do you want to just talk a
Yes,
little bit about
yes.
that real quick?
So we were initially trying to do all the movements interior, which is what we always try to do. Because of the existing parking configuration and structure, we can remove a portion of the parking to bring the trucks in a back-end configuration, but to do an internal T sort of breaks the whole mechanism, if you will, architecturally. So we're looking at a back end. I think the good news is that Rotor, is there anybody from DOT in the meeting? On the call? So Rotor is a pretty quiet interior street, if you will. Yeah, and we've submitted the turning diagrams and the maneuvering diagrams. Let me just give you a little bit of background. So contextually, the street is internal, quiet, not a through street, so that helps with traffic flow. Programmatically, this use is one that after initial lease up, my understanding with this use type is that the amount of traffic is very low, something like 1 or 2 trips a week, according to the ownership. Truck traffic is about 10% of the total patron traffic. It's mainly cars and vehicles. The storage facilities that they're providing here are small, so they're more like apartment, small 70 cubic foot containers. They don't lend themselves to, U-Haul trucks kind of thing. So we think 10% of the traffic will be truck, most of it will be vehicular. And so the need to have an internal truck maneuver perhaps is lessened with that understanding of the program. So we want to safely design, we're working with our civil engineers, safely design a back in, head out configuration as we've shown. We're removing a portion of the structure to accommodate this completely internally to the site. The internal maneuver is just very difficult for us to do and perhaps unwarranted given the nature of the program and the level of service for the trucks is our analysis.
I'm Leah Daniels from Transportation.
Yes, yes, hi.
Made that note. Hi, how are you?
How are you?
So just to be clear, because I guess I didn't understand that or get that from your writing. So if there is someone that is using a truck, what you're saying is not a high percentage of your users.
Very low percentage and very infrequent.
They wouldn't be able to make a right-in turn around internal and come back out. So that wouldn't be possible.
They would be doing what's shown on the bottom right, which is heading up Rotor, backing in, and then heading out.
So the loading space is immediately after the entrance, so they would be backing into.
Yeah, this is the loading facility here. They would be able to pull into here, bring their goods into a new elevator, access that we're providing, and then pull the truck out. But they have to back in to get into the structure. Yeah.
All right.
The vehicular service, which is 90% of the loading, all works head in, head out. The vehicles, right? And most people will be using vehicles. So it's.
This is Rebecca from DOT. Generally speaking, I mean, I assume that this garage was, existing and the garage would be able to handle the in whatever increase or decrease in traffic movement. I mean, I don't think that we were, I don't, generally speaking, something like this usually just goes through building permit. And we never review loading spaces. So I assume that they're meeting the county's loading requirements and your vehicles can maneuver in and out.
Yes.
So.
And also, I understand the next stage for this would be site plan, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Yep. So at the time of site plan, we would look for critical movements, at least for the entrance to Roder Street, which are right ins and right outs.
Oh, you went the maneuvering to get into the neighborhood?
Yes, that's right.
From how far away? Just onto the street?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
These are 30-foot trucks.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Essentially, we would like to see safe right ins and right outs for the proposed or existing access point that you're going to be using for SU30 trucks.
Onto the street and in and out of the building.
Yes.
Sounds good. And I know Katie Wagner has been working with folks about scoping and APF, and we believe we're exempt, and we'll just continue on that path independently. Any other?
Okay. So you're talking with Leah about that?
I think so. I don't actually know who she's speaking. I know we're beginning to run out of time. There was a question about the total number of storage units. I know that's kind of I wasn't sure, is that an APF type question or was that just a curiosity question?
Just more information.
Okay, I mean, they're not sure yet, but it's probably gonna be, they're gonna be smaller, which is why we think it's gonna be out of cars, they're probably gonna be in the 900 range. So. And I mean, those are really the big ones. Are we out of time? Okay, great. So we will follow up with you on, we wanted to have further conversation about legacy protection. I think we're somewhat clear in terms of process. It would be site plan only, and we would not be subject to the overlay zone, which means we would not be subject to DAP. And we wanted to just run through again, kind of our assessment in terms of the legacy protections and make sure we were all on the same page on that too. Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
We will review design internally. And it's because of the grade.
Yeah.
And the horizontal kind of vocabulary of the fenestration. At some point, you're gonna start seeing a lot of wall before you get to the second entrance.
Yeah.
So how you navigate that?
Right. Good. Yeah, we are adding more glass, so it's part of our central entrance redo. So we'll be adding glass and we'll show all that at site plan.
Okay, thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
item 3 out of 3 for VRC today. It's Miles Coppola, site plan, preliminary plan, and forest conservation plan, and Josh Penn is here to start their comments.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
See what we have here. I'm going to try and share my screen here.
While you're doing that, by the way, Ines, I'm here in person because I was here for an earlier DRC, so don't be surprised that you're there and I'm not.
I just saw you alone on that side of the table. I wish I would have joined you then. But I'm happy to see so many people on the screen as well, and I'm glad to be able to interact with everybody.
The other thing, if I can interject further, I'll sitting out in the hall, I talked with staff, and I've already, resolved a couple of issues and figured out a meeting date for follow-up. So
yeah,
wonderful. That was our priority, so I'm excited that happened already because we can get into the comments. And again, I appreciate we've had a chance to review them. We appreciate all the comments, and I think I don't see anything here insurmountable. But I think it's the design comments and the traffic comments are the main elements that we want to resolve, and just understanding what our application is and where it's going and what includes and what's owned and not controlled by the applicant via contract purchase. So we're, again, very excited about this project. We tried to incorporate all the previous approvals, and as we had met with staff and with the community to look at all the elements that are binding from this project, and also to look at opportunities of how to make this project even better from what it was before, it's been and become through the years. And most importantly, to bring this project that I'm not sure around the table how many people, but I know every time I talk to Jim Soltesz brings it up. He's been on this project for 25 years, and we're just excited to be part of the team that's going to break ground on it, hopefully in the next year. So that was our approach, and looking at design elements again that makes it unique, something that's been expected and looked forward to for many years now. So we can go through the comments. I don't know if that's staff's preference or focus on a couple of the elements that are probably some of the most important factors that will allow us to follow a schedule of a first resubmittal by September 10th.
Okay, well, what we have the forest conservation plan, we have the preliminary plan amendment and the site plan here. We did go over it, and I was looking at it. You saw all the comments. I think a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in general, there's a lot of little things that need to be tended to. We need to make sure that the next submission is a clean and complete copy. Make sure that they understand that this is the time we're doing the site plan and preliminary plan amendment. A lot of the notes were leftover notes. A lot of stuff needs to be cleaned up and clarified. Details on plans, that kind of stuff. Those are the little things. I think the biggest concern for staff at this point was that second connection point out and the fact that it was a condition of approval of the original preliminary plan. I've spoken kind of internally to everybody. I think you're going to get pretty much firm around the board that that second access point is a good idea, and for many reasons, and that we are pretty unified in the fact that we want that second access point. So I think that's going to be the biggest issue that we have in terms of that. Other stuff was just throughout the different agencies, everybody had their own comments we can see, but really this meeting is your meeting to address whatever you need to address, have questions you need to clarify. We did talk with Bob a little bit beforehand about the ownership of that orphan parcel. We didn't realize that it wasn't in ownership of the applicant because the statement of justification read like you guys know owned it. We found out that's not the case. So all those comments will be adjusted accordingly. But we're here for your questions.
Perfect. So let's start by the big one, the second entrance. So again, we saw this as an opportunity to look at the project and where it had gone. The second entrance on Clarksburg Road, I believe some of the intricacies will be according to SHA. So we're looking forward to reviewing that with SHA, MCDOT, and transportation staff from Park and Planning. I also see that there's design concerns. We just wanted to revisit again that the Gateway Center Drive is not a permanent location of this connection, that the big part of this project in the preliminary plan is the bypass road. And with that, the Gateway Center Drive would be relocated and flowing more towards the north on Clarksburg Road. So this, what we view this, where it's coming in right now, is a temporary location. So that's why we had seen the opportunity to close this connection or remove this connection as it was originally considered prior to the planning board of the previous preliminary planning, where most of other than Park and Planning staff had weighed or reviewed and weighed towards. We didn't see it as being a major issue for subdivision, as the planning board would have the ability to approve it this way. And we considered it a better design urbanistically. Our urban planning team looked at this, and that's why we had removed it. We are certainly welcome to having a follow-up conversation about it. Our team, again, believes in the better design of not having a second access. So we just want to talk about it in the future and not have this hold us up. But we do strongly believe of it being a better design without. But as everything with design, it's art. It's a matter of how everybody views it. And again, the subdivision portion of it, we think it can be overcome, as the planning board has the ability to do that. So we just want to continue a conversation offline about that. Another element I think that's important to address is the promenade. We also understand that that's a departure from what had been seen there before. We actually were seeing the CRT as a more urban component of the project, with the R90 being a more traditional neighborhood. So the promenade not only gives us fire access to these townhouses and allowing flexibility of the unit types that we are looking for in this first phase of the project, but also giving it a more urban setting with more of a plaza look. Of course, we can't leave stormwater management out and the sensitivity of all of the design, particularly in the 10 Mile Creek watershed. So that's why we do have the stormwater management elements that we see as being able to incorporate in the landscape design, but also a hardscape that serves as the fire access. So we also look forward to.
Clarify real quick before we go. By promenade, are you talking about this section right in here? Can you see my cursor?
I can't see your cursor, but the little triangle in
the
between
southeast corner, the triangle between the two sticks of towns.
Correct.
Okay, just double checking to make sure we're on the same space.
Yes, so it was an open area initially. In the previous plan, we spoke with staff beforehand on our application and included it as an amendment of bringing rear-loaded townhouses to this area. And that's, and again, addressing the elements and bringing a design that makes it more urban. This is what we were suggesting. We understand that there's some feedback on that matter from the urban design team, so we are happy to discuss it. And we also, with not having the second entrance, we were also trying to address the environmental sensitivity of 10 Mile Creek and removing impervious area, but also creating an open space, a usable open space, and where there'd be activity from the community, and highlighting the fact that this is the closest area to where we have our stream and wetland restoration on the creek right downstream from this, or downhill from this, and perhaps including some design elements that bring some awareness to the general population about stream restoration and the sensitivity of this community and this neighborhood. So we did approach everything very conscientiously from the design aspect, but we also know that the plan doesn't always translate and not everybody sees it the same way. So we're very excited about having a dialogue about it with the urban design team. And also to weigh in with transportation. So as Bob mentioned, we're probably going to have a transportation meeting where we're also probably going to address the transportation comments, such as requesting an adequacy form. We were wondering where that comment was coming from, and if it's simply to just as if this was a new application, because it being an amendment and all of the transportation comments remaining, except for the second entrance, we thought the adequacy had been addressed and didn't need to have a form. But
hold that thought for 1 second. Let's transportation folks. Do we understand what she's asking for about the adequacy form and where it came from?
Yeah, it's really just filling out the form we have online, because you don't have to redo a study or anything if that's what concerned with. It's really just putting the information you already have onto a new form.
That's helpful, because I had not seen that element before, but so I'm educated now. We'll get that done. By the way, Ines, the staff has already scheduled meeting to follow up DRC next Tuesday, starting at 9:30. I'd like to see if we can reserve, a fair amount of time then to come back on these things, but at that time. But in the meantime, staff has explained to me they want us to do a better job of writing up the build to area justification. I can do that. Secondly, we need to they need to confirm the school APF issue. So we need to request a review of that. Doesn't mean there's anything to do. They recognize that as of July 1, and in fact, as of last July 1, there is no UPP for this area. So we need to put that into writing. I've already clarified for them the orphan parcel ownership so that we don't have to do an NOI for that, as I understand it. We do want to tell them what conditions from the original preliminary plan we want changed and how we want them changed, and I can do that. And then we just discussed the adequacy form. So my suggestion would be that you and I work on those 5 items in the next couple of days, get that to staff, and that we convene again next Tuesday to talk about the urban design issues, the second entrance, and the promenade, whatever other open issues there are. Is that a reasonable request to staff? And ask, does that work for you?
that definitely works for me. I'm looking forward to hearing if it works for staff.
I'll schedule that meeting with you, Bob. Are you the contact person?
Yes.
Okay, I'll schedule that meeting with you, and it's going to be during that Tuesday, as we talked about during that time frame. While we have all the agencies here, is there any agency-specific comments that aren't related to subdivision or design that are maybe external? State highway, DOT, fire and rescue, anything you want to get out, or any discussions you had from those comments?
Hello, this is Sandra Pereira. I'm the urban design supervisor, and I'm filling in for Roberto Duke, who's on leave today. He's the design reviewer on this project. And I think it may be worthwhile to speak about the central open space where the promenade, because I believe that's also serving as fire department access for some of those units. And so maybe if Marie is on the call, maybe we can have this conversation. The comment that we had.
I am here.
So the comment that we had made was that we were hoping to have a more centrally located open space that was not paved. Just because on the previous approval, you had that as a green area. You had also play equipment in that central space. And when we were looking at this community now, it felt like it was lacking a centrally located open space with amenities for the residents of this community, of this portion, the CR portion of the project. We know that you have another phase, the R90 phase, but we don't know when that's coming in. We don't know when that's going to be built. So we need to have amenities here that fulfill the needs of this residents. And so a centrally located open space seemed really important. It also seemed to us from conversations with Marie that we can perhaps address fire department access for those units through the alleys that are shown behind. So I think this would be a good conversation to have today since everybody is here on the call already.
All right, and that's back to you, because I'm not qualified to answer either of those comments.
Oh, we certainly welcome the conversation, whether it's in this space or later on, but one of the elements we want to include here is, again, flexibility of all of these units being able to have windows above the 27 foot limit. As some of these units will have optional lofts. And so that's why we were proposing the plaza promenade to be able to to also provide fire access.
So if you go back to the 2019 performance-based design guide that the planning department put out, there is an option for units that are not stacked, so not even partially stacked, no garage under another space. As long as they are straight up and down townhouses, they can be non-height restricted if you meet 150 feet to the front door and 50 feet to the rear facing walls. That includes a 10-foot clear space between edge of pavement and that rear wall. So if your alleys meet that 50 feet to the rear wall and you get 150 feet to the front door of each unit, and remember, that's got to come from the same access point. So that's got to come from the private street, not the alley, on both of those sticks. If you can meet those conditions, you can make this work without the promenade.
So we can waive the 27 feet in the front rule.
Well, it wouldn't apply if you meet both of those conditions. I can't use the word waiver for life safety code of the state of Maryland.
Right. I'm just thinking of the neighboring place next door where we did just that, but in the front, they were still not allowed to do windows above 27 feet. So that's why
I'd have to go back and look. This was something that was negotiated between fire rescue planning and DPS in 2019. So that might have been a change depending on when that was constructed.
Got it.
Thank you, Marie, for pointing that out. And as that's kind of what we are hoping is that it can fit the bill where the alley is used for fire access. So the backs of those townhouses are going to be within 50 feet from that alley. And then from private street A, it looked to us that all of those townhouses were within 150 feet. So you could meet that, and that would actually, even for a hardscape layout or a softscape layout, it would just give us more flexibility, because the moment we start to put fire access in the space, then you can't put other things in that space. It has to be free and clear for Marie's firefighters to get there, an emergency vehicle. So the performance-based alternative was a great compromise, and we're hoping it can apply here.
Understood. I do have one additional question. The rear facing wall to the alley does not require a door at the ground level.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And just a side note to respond to some, I can't remember whose comment it was, apologize. There is a playground on this side. It is over off to the side right now on this view. It is an all-age playground, so it is pretty significant in size, 25,000 square foot of area. So I do want you to know there are amenities over here. I realize it's not labeled on this plan that we're looking at. I think it's labeled in the landscape set.
Are you saying the playground is where?
It looks like a football right now next to the pavilion and the arced walkway.
Is that where the second access point would be for this community that we are recommending?
Correct.
Yes, but likely I will say the playground will still probably stay over here as it'll probably be too loud in the fronts of those units.
And
yes,
again, we were attempting to have this again in the closest environmental and forested area, just to be an additional element. I also wanted, just looking at that location, and a comment we had heard from DOT and from staff, is that making sure that we had visitor parking. So that's why we also have in that area a small parking area adjacent to the playground and to allow for visitor parking.
And I think the idea was, I mean, I realize you guys want the second entrance, but the idea was to make a focal point so that we would invite people in from Clarksburg Road and let them know that they can use these amenities, as the pathways are open to all and stuff. So that was, I think, the idea.
It also just, we were going for view shed where we were
Mhm.
kind of saying, hey, this is a new neighborhood. We want to be part of the community here, and we're putting our best foot forward. And in the layout and the center part, we're saying, we know it's in Clarksburg, and everybody views a lot of this as suburban, but we do identify this portion of the site as a more urban layout. So that was what we were trying to portray with these open spaces. I also wanted to highlight how the connectivity of all of the pedestrian network throughout the site I believe in the original plan, there was more connections on the perimeter with the natural surface trail, but we also made sure that there's connections throughout the site with the paths that cross from the northern open space and forested area to come into that central promenade, and also come to the more active and passive play area on the close to the Gateway Center Drive location.
Sandra, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to add that I appreciate the clarifications. This is helpful. The urban design team is supporting the Op County team as well as the transportation team on the second connection. And so as such, that open space and amenity areas, if they don't have room at that present location, then we would support moving them to the central area, central open space. I think the central open space also becoming green also means less imperviousness, which we all want for this project, as well as, the urban design goals that we were discussing.
Understood.
Sounds like the ball's back in our court to look at the combination of the second entrance and the central open space to figure out what the best overall option is.
Understood. And it may be a combination of, again, maintaining the vision of the connection with the environmental areas for the open space, and kind of in a educational way with the tot lot, as well as bringing all of the other elements. But we hear you loud and clear. We'll take another look at that promenade area and look at more traditional open space approaches.
Do we have input from SHA on the second access?
No, we do not.
This is Quasi with SHA. The second access that's being removed.
Yeah, so originally when we did this plan a couple of years ago, there was no second connection until the certification set, when staff had us add the second connection. So if you look at past approval sets, there was a connection to Gateway Center, but it didn't appear until certified set. So now staff is asking for it back.
Okay, so I know when we initially reviewed the traffic study tied to this, there was no access here. So I mean, I don't have a problem with it being removed. We didn't really look at it or review when it was analyzed. So we don't have a problem with it being removed.
Yeah, but just want to clarify that, there was a condition added when the board approved this for a second access. The reason it shows up in the certified plan is because the condition of approval that the board required supported staff's recommendation and required a second access point. So right now that is the approval.
Okay, all I'm saying is it wasn't a part of all the pre-submissions and pre-reviews until after everyone had reviewed it.
Okay, yeah, I just want to clarify that.
It wasn't something that was being reviewed.
By
It was something that happened later.
Right. Yeah, so we did not look at it. We did not have a chance to look at it.
So would it be appropriate for Kyle Nick to present this information to Quasi so he can weigh in on the second access and give his feedback to planning staff?
Yeah, I mean, we can coordinate internally and then meet next Tuesday, it sounds like, to further discussion on the open space, on the second connection, on the imperviousness. From our calculation is getting worse, not better. So it seems we've added, yeah, we shaved some road, but added units. And I think the impervious level is actually more than it was in the previous approval. So look, I think there's a lot to unpack here and talk about next Tuesday. I think we might be seeing it a little bit differently.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
are a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah.
So I think we've got to go back to the drawing board and see, how much of this comment we can incorporate, and then come back with sort of plan B, plan C, whatever you want to call it, and discuss it next Tuesday.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
The one comment before we conclude the meeting, and that's about the improvements that we saw on Redgrave Place. Was part of this site plan or not?
Don't know. Did you
Yes,
hear that enough?
yes, so we're conditioned to do frontage improvements in front of the school. We did intend to install those frontage improvements as part of phase 1. However, we're not recording the Redgrave, or not doing anything to the Redgrave piece as far as anything else goes, I think, until phase 2, which it really just ends up being, I think. Well, actually, I don't know if that's true, but it's mostly related to forest. But yes, the frontage improvements on Redgrave are part of phase 1. They're opposite our frontage, though. They're just for the school.
Right.
So it is part of this phase.
Yes.
Yes. So on the sheet, I think before this, I think you can see the little blow up that includes that part.
Okay.
I believe it's on sheet 3.
Yes, I mean, it might be a simple site path addition, Stephanie, but there are a lot more there to discuss. For example, the right of way, who's going to maintain it, what it's going to connect to. And these are the stuff that we probably like to discuss with you.
Redgrave isn't our road to control.
It's county roadway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think all we were conditioned to do was put in sidewalks for the school, since our side of the street will remain forest.
Yeah.
And I believe it was told to us years ago that that was going to remain a dead end road.
Yes, no, I was talking about the street itself. I was talking about the site path. I mean, who's going to maintain it? If it's us, then we need some sort of an easement, something that could maintain it. If
Oh, you mean Street A?
no, Redgrave Place,
The sidewalk,
the site path is
side path, okay.
pretty wide. Yeah.
Is it in the right of way, Stephanie?
It's in the school frontage. I think it's in their side of the right of way.
So
I don't-
on MCPS property. Okay. Well, let me
Yes.
ask this then, Sam. Although she indicated we were trying to get that resolved now in phase 1, it doesn't seem to me critical in phase 1. And given that that adds another issue, and the fact that we're trying to get phase 1 approved, in the near term, would it be okay with you if we defer resolution of that to phase 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Essentially, you have to remove that block that's Stephanie
Yeah,
mentioned out. So
Because it's complicated. with
it
this,
is complicated. Yeah, it's not that simple.
Stephanie and Ines, does that work for you?
Yes.
Sorry, the Sir Brockmeyer transportation.
Oh, yeah.
Supervisor, is there a condition related to when that is?
Yeah.
Because we may have an issue with that.
Oh.
I mean.
No, there's not a condition as to when we deliver. There's just a condition that we have to deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we would just, yeah.
And it's not really related to phase 1 any more than phase 2 or.
Yeah, it's so disconnected from everything. We
Yeah.
just lumped it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm good. I just want to make sure there wasn't another condition we needed to
Okay.
evaluate.
Okay. Anything else?
No,
from
that's it
staff?
from us. I'll go ahead and schedule that meeting. If you want to hit me up with an email, just saying if there's any specific people or specific issues, so I can make sure the right people are in the room.
Can I
Okay,
ask one more request? Can we set up a meeting to discuss Forest Con comments, just to make sure we're all on the same page?
can we do that at the same time?
Oh, I don't want to pack too much into one.
There's a lot
meeting.
of detail on
Yeah.
those, and I think a lot of those will go away. They're just they're technical, so they should
Yeah,
probably be a
I think
separate
we
application.
mostly just want to make sure everyone's on the same LOD page and all of that. So it could just be a virtual meeting, I think.
Well, let's put that on the agenda for Tuesday. If we get to it, we get to it. If not, a virtual meeting to follow up.
Okay.
Yeah, and I apologize for going over time, but I do want to mention that the side path is part of condition 24, which is prior to the 88th permit.
You're speaking about the Red Grave path?
The Red Grave path.
So would you be modifying that condition?
Probably so. Yeah,
No, we only have 83 units over here.
So
So we don't have to
it's just
modify it.
intricacies of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're willing to put it in earlier if we can figure out the maintenance to everybody's satisfaction. And it could be, MCPS, I'm not sure they're on the call, but if they would take over the maintenance or the county, or the county right away. We can figure it out.
You just may want to add that to what we discussed next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If we're going to discuss them, I would have to attend it too, because I want to make sure that issue is figured out. It's not going to cause any problem if that's going to be part of this space has to be permit as part of this phase. But again,
I mean, this could be resolved with like a simple phone call with MCPS who says, yeah, that's fine. We'll give maintenance access for the shared.
Patrick.
Well, we'll try that.
Yeah.
I
I
don't.
don't want to like sink the ship here. We don't like have them in the room. I mean, this could be 10, 15
But again,
minutes.
this is the permits that require it are triggered and not in this site plan.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you must do it, but I'm saying if it's on the table, we should have a quick call with MCPS and see if we can't resolve it. And then we're not saying we're going to make you do it if it ends up being a lot easier than we're describing right here.
Right.
We can reach out to MCPS. Honestly, I've never really had to deal with them on that kind of issue, so I have no idea how complicated or simple it might be.
Yeah, and also that Red Grave is a public roadway.
Yeah.
We would like
Correct.
to really maintain the sidewalk facilities along the public roadway.
Sure.
Unless DOT decides that they don't want to do it. But typically, when a road is public, we would like the sidewalk to be public too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay, well then, Bob, I'll send you a meeting and you can send me an email back with the kind of just who you want to be there, what specific issues, maybe an agenda, and then we can make sure everybody's in the room for you.
All right. Okay. All right. Great. And in essence, Stephanie, can we talk, in an hour or so about follow-up?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, folks. This
Have a
one's
good day.
complicated. Obviously.
Thank you.